Nashidelek. And welcome to Wednesdays with Rinpoche. And tonight we will continue learning from the Dhammapada. As you all know, that Dhammapada is a collection of Buddha's teaching in verses. And last Wednesday, we learned the first verses from the first chapter, and tonight from the Dhammapada, chapter 1, verses 4, and in Tibetan, for the Dhammapada, we say ZaChoeje Rinpoche, and it is translated from the Pali canon. So actually, Buddha actually gave many teachings, and so it is a collection of some very important words of wisdom that was actually taught by Buddha in the verses. And so the verses 4 from the chapter 1, actually in Tibetan it actually goes like that. Ngala mejing, ngala ne, means sort of like in English it is translated like or he or she criticized me, and he or she harmed me. So in a kind of like in the translation, actually I translated in English sort of like here as a me, like in the quote. And then ngale chokjing nga pam she, means he or she stole from me. And then nga pams, nga, like me, I was defeated. And then kange teta misempas, those who does not harbor, hold those thoughts, such thoughts, their anger will be pacified. So that is actually the word of the wisdom that is collected from the Dhammapada. So somehow here, actually it is one thing that we all know, that anger is a big issue in our life. Just somehow it is just kind of like we don't have to explain, and everybody knows, right? Each and every one of us actually went through difficulties with our anger, and somehow just kind of like we don't really have to explain how anger is harmful and how bad anger is, and how actually holding on to our anger and hatred and resentment and all these things are somehow kind of like issues, creating many problems and steering our peace of mind and harmony within the family, harmony within the community, harmony within the relationship, and sort of like so that is kind of like somehow it kind of like what do you call stirs up, it messes up like our life sort of like unnecessarily, right? So somehow what Buddha was actually here actually saying is the main actually cause, what is the main cause is like like if we too much focus on kind of like me, like I, me, myself, sort of like so in a way, so that is what actually Buddha was actually saying, sort of like the more we actually kind of like put importance, like self-importance or selfish, like if we put self kind of more like as a, what do you call, the center of the universe, right? So many times sort of like if we put like a priority, sort of like if we live with the life by saying me, sort of like, so especially when we actually think of me, like so then somehow it is like when we think of me, and then many times we go into sort of like this negative, what do you call, mental sort of like a, like a way of thinking, right? Sort of like, so there are like many times like we are sort of like a very easy to look at the negative things that is happening in our life, and so somehow like the criticism, or like we jump like very easily towards the conclusion, right? We always jump toward the conclusion, sort of like no matter what is happening, like problems or issues in our life, because then somehow this mentality of like always saying me, and then like sort of like when these negative things happen, then like we easily jumps toward the conclusion of kind of blaming, right? Sort of like oh, he or she criticized me, or sort of like, so when we actually put it that way, so then somehow like we fall into this kind of like blame game, right? Blaming someone or something like for your own misfortune is kind of like a very easily comes in us. So somehow that is kind of like when we actually think of like so and so, or he or she sort of like criticize me and belittle me and disrespect me. See, that's kind of like so if we kind of live this kind of like with this mentality of always putting me kind of like in front, even like in our day-to-day life, many times we always kind of like subconsciously, right? Subconsciously or also unconsciously kind of like we put me as a kind of like a priority. Our priority is like if there is something to do with me, then like we are interested. And then if there is like a threat, the so-called threat, or some sort of like we make up the stories that okay, so and so is actually plotting some sort of like harm or something like that, then it is just like me, they are actually plotting some kind of plans against me or something like. So somehow just kind of if we actually too much focus on me, then kind of like we will get angry very easily. So that is somehow Buddha was saying, like if you harbor those thoughts, like so, and like if like many times sort of like when we actually go through a lot of issues in our life and problems in our life, suddenly sort of like we actually go and look who is responsible, right? Who is responsible for my misfortune? Who's responsible for my misery? So then sort of like we are like a kind of very busy searching for who to criticize. And so then like we get somebody, okay, so they are responsible for my suffering and they did something to me, and then sort of like we always kind of like why they did it to me, and then this kind of like when we say actually why they did it to me, and then many times, oh, because like I am not important to that person. And then in the beginning, when somebody actually criticizes us, sort of like nobody likes that, right? And then we actually add more by actually asking this question, why? And then, when we put this question, why, then our ego mind get very busy searching for answer. And then all this answer comes. Why? Because you are not good enough. Why? Because I'm not important to them. And then sort of like all these stories comes after that. And then like in the beginning, our anger is just kind of like just sort of like a frustration, right? It was just a frustration or disappointment, right? So on some level, like the nature of the anger, by its nature, like if we actually look at from the kind of like the verses from the Buddhist teaching, like we say, Semge Rangshin Veselwa Timanamne Lubrwa, all the mind, like it's part of mind, right? Anger is part of mind. So somehow, by nature, anger itself is like it is clear and sort of like pure. So, but like when we don't leave our anger in its own natural state, so somehow what we do is we add a lot of stories. So many times, like how actually we allow our kind of mind to make story. Many times I think it is because we always kind of like sort of like simply kind of like ask this question, right? Sort of like so if something is something sort of like some threat comes into our life, okay, so this is threat. Somebody is doing this, like somebody actually criticized me, somebody belittled me, and then first and foremost, we already have this very sort of like we put a lot of importance, right? The self-importance. And top of that, then we put a lot of expectation, right? We put a lot of expectation on other people. Sort of like we expect that everybody should look at me as the most important person, right? Sort of like the center of the universe, right? Sometimes I kind of like think that we human beings sort of like in the history, right? We always think that each one of us, we are the center of the universe. And then if you look at the history, like in our human sort of like way of philosophy, long time people used to think that I am the center of the universe and everything should revolve around me, right? Sort of like we kind of like we thought that sun is revolving around the earth and the moon is revolving around the earth, and everything is revolving around me. Sort of the kind of like there is a basic sort of like philosophy or belief that we hold, thinking that I am the center of the universe and I should be the center of the universe, and then everything should go as I think, because I am the most important, because I'm the center of the universe. And so, like if you look into the history, like from the science point of view, when a Galileo actually made a statement saying that actually sun doesn't revolve around us, like we revolve around the sun, and it cost his life, right? It's just kind of like somehow in the history, people didn't like that. So that is a very clear sign that somehow we always think that I am the center of the universe. Me, it's like always something to do with me. So somehow, when we actually become too much, when we always think of like me, myself, then what happens is it's a selfish, right? It's a selfish sort of I am the most important thing, and then other people are not important, right? So so there is actually big difference, right? We should definitely think I am important. We are not saying that I am important, but sort of not the most important, right? So there is a big difference. So that is why even in the mind training Buddhist practice, in the Guru Yoga, there is one blessing that we seek, and the word that we use is we say that Rangi Jinzin Guba Kungin Go, sort of only just cherishing self, is the root of all the suffering. So sometimes, that is also a little bit misinterpreted. Sometimes we say self-cherishing. Self-cherishing is bad. But actually, there is a very clear difference in Tibetan word. So, sort of like Rang Chenzi. Rang means self. Chenzi means cherishing. And then there is actually another syllable that adds to it, is called the Rang Ni. So this, the word, the syllable Ni, is a very it makes a difference. Actually, Ni means just, only. So if you cherish only yourself, then that is that is selfishness, right? So cherishing yourself is important. Yes, of course. We have to cherish our life. We have to cherish ourselves. So, same thing. It is if we cherish ourselves and we actually cherish everybody. So, if we put importance, it is if we put importance to yourself as well as others. So that is difference. That is not selfish, right? Selfishness meaning sort of only me. Only me is the only. So then somehow actually it goes against the nature, right? It's just kind of if we start living our life saying that I am the only one that is important. See, if you actually put that statement, and realistically, from a common sense point of view, you write that statement and then see, is that correct? Definitely it is not correct. It's not a correct statement, right? I am the only, right? I am the only important person in the whole universe. So if that is not a correct statement, if we actually holding on to that, sort of if we kind of live our life with that belief, then, many problems will come. So somehow what happens is, we will get frustration easily. Of course, everybody will not look at you as you are the most important person, right? And then frustration. First, in the beginning, it is just some sort of a little frustration, sort of a little upset. And then slowly sort of like when we add a story around it, sort of like why they are not treating me like the most important person in the whole world, and then we make many answers comes, right? Many answers comes, and then it becomes sort of like those stories will make us very disappointed, and then the disappointment will actually grow more and more and more, and then sort of somehow it will turn into some sort of like anger, some sort of like a hatred, some sort of like a just simply, what do you call, simply kind of like a hatred, and then by holding on to our anger and our hatred for a long time, then somehow it will become like a resentment. And then when it becomes like a resentment, then when we look at the person who we are actually holding resentment, then what happens is everything, that person, whatever that person is doing, like how we are taking it, is we are taking it everything negative. Like no matter, even they say something good, then we take it as bad, right? And then sort of like we actually hold like a grudge. We build on that, like we build, and so then somehow we actually make a lot of unnecessary, action, and that creates miseries in our life. So that is why I also put a quote that is from the Buddha, so which is kind of like also very true. Buddha said that you will not be punished for your anger. So it's kind of like somehow like if you get angry, nobody, no other person is kind of like is going to punish you for what you're doing, but you will be punished by your own anger, right? So that is what Buddha said. You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished for your anger. So somehow that is kind of like interesting to look at, right? When we actually get sort of like angry. So this like if somebody, we think that somebody made a mistake, and then we get angry for it, and then we actually kind of trying to do something bad to that person. It is like you yourself drinking the poison, because who is actually hurting? When you get angry, you're not hurting anybody else. You're hurting yourself, right? So that is somehow, these are the kind of like interesting kind of like a word of the wisdom that is from the Buddha's teaching. So just kind of the bottom line, is if we actually understand that if we think like not too much importance on self, so it is kind of like when we put ourselves as the most important person, then somehow we actually cannot really respect. The respect will not come, right? Because kind of like you will put yourself as the most important, and then everybody is like kind of like less important, right? They are less important than you. So somehow how you are putting is you are actually putting yourself on the top, and then everybody else is underneath it. So if we actually like live our life like that, then of course then everybody, how you treat, when you treat other people with that kind of like mentality, with that belief, with that kind of like way of thinking, then this kind of like this will come, like how dare that person criticize me, sort of like why they are criticizing me, why they are belittling me, why they are saying bad things to me. they should say good things to me. They are supposed to say good things to me. Sort of why? Because I am more important than everybody is, less important. They are lower than me. I am higher. So sort of like somehow when we actually start thinking that how dare you, treating me like that, then what happened is we will become more and more angry. So that is why actually Buddha was saying that if you want to pacify your anger, then what you need to do is don't harbor, don't hold such thoughts. And how can we not hold such thoughts is by actually sort of like changing how we actually look at. It is just like I am important, at the same time they are also important. Sort of like so somehow this kind of like from the wisdom of the Buddhas. So there is like always equanimity, right? Equanimity, sort of like equal, sort of like equal. So it is not saying that we should think prioritize other people or not. Maybe from the bodhisattva point of view, maybe when we become like a totally selfless kind of like, then maybe we can put other people, other sentient beings before us. But and like at this kind of like a situation, our day-to-day life, then just kind of like to say that okay, you have to put other people in front of you, you should think other people, other sentient being more important than you. It is kind of little bit tacky, right? It's a tacky word. Like maybe idealistically, maybe that is good, but to be able to to able to walk on that path, then it is a little bit difficult at this moment. But what is what we can do is we can actually look at everybody as equal, right? Equanimity, sort of like equal. I am, we are all sort of like we are equal. So there's if we look at from the equal point of view, as we always hear many of the His Holiness Dalai Lama statement, right? Everybody wants to be happy. I want to be happy. You want to be happy. We all want to be happy. If we look from that point of view, we are all equal, right? See, this equal, sort of like we are all equal. Sort of like I am important, you are important, we are all important. Sort of like if we actually think it that way, then somehow we will not get as many angry as we actually used to. So somehow, if we actually start sort of not putting so much most important kind of tag on ourselves, if we actually remove that tag, many times, most of us actually live our life with that tag, right? There's an invisible tag that we put on ourselves, saying that I am the most important person, right? And so then there's people comes, there's 10 people in the room, and all these 10 people comes in the room, so everybody is saying, I'm the most important, I'm the most important, I'm the most important. Then, realistically, it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. It is just so it's one person is thinking, so if there's a 10 person, they are all thinking that I'm the most important person, and then, there's a 11th person looking from the sky and saying that, tell me, out of this all 10 people, so they are all holding a tag saying that I'm the most important, I'm the most important, and that that person, the 11th person looking from the top actually say, you ask that question, who is the most important person in that circle? And I think, the 11th person will say, I think every one of them is important, right? It's not like one person is important. And then if you choose one person as the most important person, and if you're pointing out to that person, or he or she is the most important person, the rest of the 9 people will be upset, right? They will be angry. So, we are kind of like, we are living in this world, we are all sort of like holding that tag of saying, I am the most important person. So, sort of like, and everywhere we go, whoever we talk, sort of like behind that kind of like our face, like we are kind of secretly hiding that tag inside us and saying sort of like, I'm the most important. And then everything that what we do, everything that what we say, and then if it is filtered through that, then, if you are the 10th person, then all the 9 people will not like it, right? Everybody will kind of like, oh, why, you are the most important person. And then, those 9 people will be frustrated. They will, because they will starting to say that, no, you are the most important. And then, if you argue with that person, and then those person will actually, everybody will say, yeah, you are not the most important person, right? And then there's just kind of like, and then, because they are all against you, and they are all against sort of like this one person, they are all agreeing the same thing, that you are not the most important person. And then what you feel is, you feel like they are all attacking you. And then when you feel like they are all attacking you, then what happens is you feel threatened. You are threat. So it's like the whole world is against me. The whole world is against me. And when the whole world is against us, then somehow what happens? It's like when people are against you, then like it is by nature, right? If we are threatened, then we get angry, right? So that is why actually just kind of deep inside, behind the anger is an expression, right? Anger is an expression. So beneath anger, there is a fear. Fear that kind of like responding to the threat. So this threat is somehow, it's like we made that as a threat, sort of like, so like they are against me, they are attacking me, and then we don't take any responsibility for that, right? We just simply say that they are attacking me. And then why they are attacking you, these 9 people is attacking one person. Why? Because that one person is actually saying that I'm the most important, so they don't like it, right? So then you feel like, sort of like, so what is the main cause? The main cause is because you actually present yourself as the most important person. That's why they don't like you, right? So that is why you actually, they stood against you, and that is why you interpreted it as a threat. So when you interpreted that as a threat, so they are all, then you are just making a story. They are all against me. The world is against me, and then you just kind of feel like you are sort of like you are abused, you are tortured. And then if we actually start believing that, okay, the world is against me, and everybody is pointing finger at me, everybody is kind of like taking advantage of me, everybody is actually blaming me, everybody is stealing from me, and they're all there to defeat me. Like, see, if these all things comes, then somehow we create this sort of like all the threat, so-called threat, we believe them as a threat. And then when we actually think that there are so many threats, the world is covered with the threats, threats for your well-being, threats of your life, then simply what happens is we become very angry. We become so angry. It is just kind of like, it's just the main thing is the fear. The fear actually kind of like when we see the threat, and then suddenly we sort of like we show the anger come as a sort of like to help us, right? If we look at like the animal, like if you look at the animal, like just you simply go there and there's like you have a small pet, like your dog or your cat or any animal, just kind of like it is just their like a instinct, right? It's an instinct. You actually go there and you threat them. You just kind of make them scared. You make them scared. And what is their response? If you threat, like many the animals, actually they are like, they get angry at us when we put threat, when we scare them, right? When we scare them, they show this angry face. And they show this angry face, and then they are like, they show this kind of like they're coming to bite you, right? So somehow it is kind of like the anger actually comes because we think everybody is against us. So why do we think that everybody is against us? Because everybody is not accepting, because we present ourselves like individual, we present ourselves as the most important person. So, like when we actually present ourselves as the most important person, then people will not accept it. People will not agree with it, right? Because they are also, now on the other hand, they are also thinking that I am the most important. So these two people comes, and then, living together, I'm the most important, then conflict is natural, right? So then how can these two people live together happily, right? These two people, when they start living together, the more and more, then each one of them is trying to prove by who is more important. I'm the most important, then sort of like slowly there's some sort of like a dislikeness come, right? This dislikeness built up, sort of like slowly building up. So then slowly it is just like some sort of like, it become like an upset. So you are upset, and then you holding on something that, oh, they did something, he or she did this, so he or she did this to actually make me less important. And then okay, I will revenge. So if you are making me like a less important person, then I will make you less important person. So see, so this kind of fight, this built up, and then slowly what happens is it becomes resentment, and then like it actually it happens many times in the family, it happens many times in the relationship, right? So that is what actually I thought that this from the Dhammapada, what Buddha was actually saying here when he was saying that this this thing that is Dhala merging, right? So like saying that Ngala merging, Ngala ne, sort of like he criticized me, he harmed me, like he stole something from me, he stole from me, and then I was actually defeated in the before, and so then somehow he or she defeated me, then this revenge, vengeful, right? Sort of like, so this subconsciously, unconsciously plotting something, right? So if you live your life with this subconsciously and unconsciously sort of like plotting something, like because he or she defeated me, now I'm not going to accept that defeat and I'm going to defeat it back. Sort of very vengeful, right? So then, see, what happened is then, we will not have any peace in mind. So somehow that is one very, I would say that is very profound teaching from the Dhammapada. So that is why tonight I wanted to share this Dhammapada teaching. All right. Anyway, so this is the word from the Dhammapada, and just analyze it, because this is words of the wisdom collected from the Buddha's teaching, and somehow it actually applies. It applies for our day-to-day life. And so if we kind of like accept that the main cause of the anger is because I always put a tag or label that I am the most important. So just kind of like, you can put a tag, I am important. Yes, it is okay. Just take the most out of that. Like, I am important. It is okay. It is sort of like, nobody will deny that. Just kind of you go around and say, I am important, and you are also important, and like if, I think people will not stand against that. But if you put, I am the most important, then, people will not like it. People will stood against you, and then they will create some sort of like a so-called threat. And then you will think they are threatening you, and then you will get angry. So somehow, if you kind of remove that most word from that statement, and then, somehow your you will have less anger, you will be less disappointed, you will be less frustrated, you will have a less hatred. And if you have if you live your life with less anger and hatred, then the opposite side of the anger is love and compassion and kindness will grow. And then, the result of the anger is a conflict, fight, all this unnecessary misery. So if we make our life less anger and hatred, then, all the positive result will come. Peace, happiness, and calm, and all these things will come. So anyway, so that is the lessons for tonight. All right. Anyway, I am just kind of like going to look here. So so somehow, when I was looking here, maybe many of you have made a comment earlier, but somehow it is not showing on my screen here on the iPad. So whoever comment is showing here, I will read it. And if I don't see your name here, that means somehow it was because it was on the previous. Because when I put off and then come back again, somehow all the comments that you made actually doesn't show here. All right. Anyway, so here I see Cherry Langston, Tashi Delek, and then Mary K. Moses, Tashi Delek. Appreciate your teaching, thank you, and you're welcome. And then I see Martin, dearest Rinpoche, Tashi Delek, in life it is difficult to survive without friends I don't have. Can Red Tara mantra help me and better to do just my regular practice? Yes, I think, any practice like, Red Tara, Green Tara, sort of like, so somehow, it is kind of like, sometime, just kind of like, be friend with yourself. And so then, just kind of like, you will find friends, all right? And then I see here Ming, Shua Ming Lao, Ming Tashidelek. So Ming is saying, Tashidelek Rinpoche, good morning and thank you for the wonderful quotes and teaching. My question is, would compromisation be a method to pacify anger? Like compromising, are you saying compromising, right? Compromisation involves some level of sacrifice of our needs, want, but sometimes it is difficult to give up our sense of need, want, which can turn into frustration that leads to anger. Therefore, how to compromise wisely if it is a method to help with reducing anger? Yes, I think just kind of like somehow kind of like a little compromising is always needed, right? It's just a common sense, right? Sort of like just kind of like if we are living, like sometime, we are living, in the group of friends, and then sometime, we just kind of like, we cannot just let kind of like our, way of thinking, sort of like, so we sometimes just kind of one thing that we have to compromise is like, my way is the right way. So that is sometimes we have to compromise, sometimes your way is the right way, sometimes other people's way is the right way, sort of like, so sometimes you compromise that. So I think like if we compromise that sort of like giving importance, and then just kind of like when we actually live our life with equanimity, right? Sort of like your wants and your needs is important, my wants and my needs is important, and sometimes we have to compromise. Sometimes we just put other people's needs in sort of like a front, and then depending, it is depending on that, but then not totally compromising, sort of. So sometimes, sometimes we actually compromise, and then, if what if that compromise sort of like is like a lose-lose situation, both of you, sort of like if you're compromising for someone, and then, if it is kind of like going into a sort of a harmful way, then we have to actually kind of discuss and then kind of play it wisely. So, so there is kind of like and as you said in the word, sort of like a wise compromisation, sort of that is important, but that is depending on different situations, I think, right? So the simple answer is yes, sometimes compromising is important. So compromising is important. So if you can compromise, your needs and other people's needs a little bit, so then it goes, like if you compromise something and then other people is also compromising something, and that's life, right? We actually go along in our life by compromising something, right? Compromising something, right? And then our Geshe Lobsang Chumbe is there, Tashidele Geshe-la. And then Manika Omane Pemehum, dear Rinpoche, thank you for this teaching today. You are very welcome, Manika. And then Ngeme Kyampula Tashidele. And Sylvia, thank you very much, Sylvia. You're welcome. And then Bobby Wilford, blessing Rinpoche, thank you for sharing Buddha's teaching with us every week. Namaste. Namaste, Bobby, thank you. And then Cho Chan Tin Tashidelek Tin, okay, thank you for your wonderful teaching. Can you explain how to practice the Yamantaka practice to overcome and transform anger? So yes, I think this is like in the Vajrayana, in the highest there is like one deity practice called the Yamantaka. So somehow this is a very kind of like advanced kind of like a Vajrayana practice. Somehow this kind of practice is allowed for people who are initiated into the Yamantaka. So somehow I cannot explain here a lot about the Yamantaka, but generally, just kind of like Yamantaka practice is sort of like a practice of transforming fear, and transforming anger, sort of like like in the Tibetan also we call it Shedang Dorje. Shedang means like a hatred or anger. So Dorje means Vajra. So sort of like a anger Vajra, hatred Vajra. So what is that actually means is, as in the beginning, as I said, actually anger is part of mind, right? So it is part of mind, and by nature, anger is not sort of like what do you call, not kind of like not bad, right? From nature, because it is part of mind. So that means it is pure. There is like a certain level of kind of purity in the anger that is like there's a clear light, there's a clear, and then there is the essence of the mind is already there, but it is covered by like some sort of like a negative sort of like what do you call, it's covered by some negative afflictions on the surface. And sometimes, like transforming anger is like, for example, kind of like if we look at the fire is dangerous, right? We cannot actually say that fire is bad, right? But it depends on how actually we use the fire. If you use the fire if you actually know how to work on with the fire, that is most of us we know, right? For example, like if there is no light in the room, we make the fire and then we put the candle, and then fire is actually helpful, right? We kind of like we are using it in a kind of like for a beneficial way, and then we most of us we cook with the fire, and then we actually bring heat and sort of like bring warmness from the fire. But then if you use the fire in a negative way, again fire has so much power, because it will burn down the whole house, it will burn down the whole so that is why fire itself has this like a helpful, beneficial essence there. So there is like for anger, like by nature, anger is not absolutely, totally bad or negative, but there is like beneath this surface of the anger, there is some sort of like intensity, intensity. Generally, by nature, why do we have anger? Why? Because anger comes as a protection. Like when there is a threat, we become angry, right? It is coming as a protection, like it is protecting us, right? So initial kind of like intention behind the anger is helpful, right? So like from that point of view, also we can look at anger. So there is some sort of like a positive thing, which is like intensity. So if we take that selfishness part away from the anger, then there is something purity. So that is sort of like from the Yamantaka practice, there is especially Yamantaka means that the Lord, right? The Shinjishe means it is the Lord of the death, right? Because death is the thing that we all get scared, right? The death is the somehow biggest threat for our life, right? So if you can actually if you can transform that fear of death, then what happens is you are the Lord of the death. So symbolically, Yamantaka means Shinjishe. Shinjishe means it's like the what do you call opposite of the death, fear of death. So somehow transformation of the fear of the death, right? So that is a very advanced form of Vajrayana, highest yoga tantra practice. So there are a lot of things to actually know about that. All right, team. So then I see Regula from Ernie, Tashidelek. You said that about a year before Je Tsongkhapa died, he wrote a condensed text with a clear meaning of emptiness and selflessness. What is the name of the text, and has it been translated into English? Thanks. Yeah, actually it is the Lamrim. Lamrim. There is a Lamrim Chewa, Lamrim Dingwa, Lamrim Chunga. So there is actually 3 Lamrim, right? So before the year before Lama Tsongkhapa passing away into Nirvana, so he wrote this Lamrim, the middle version of Lamrim. I think it is already translated somehow, but I didn't read it in English. So if you can look around, I think there is a translation of that. So somehow, yes, there, he actually talks, kind of like emphasize what is this I, right? I. So there is a difference between selflessness. So what is the self? So, I, I am, we cannot say I don't exist. I exist, right? I exist, but how do I exist? So I is, kind of like I exist just as a label, right? Just imputed by, imputed by mind. So somehow it is not separate from the 5 aggregates, but it is also not the 5 aggregates. Somehow there is a kind of like not some sort of like, so there's, so I think he emphasized on understanding what is the I, so there's, yeah. And then I see Lunshan. Lunshan, so thank you for the teaching and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Lunshan. Thank you, you're welcome. And then Manika Simo Manipemehum, thank you for this teaching. Okay, you're welcome. Regula Tashidelek, thank you very much for this teaching and your caring. You are very welcome. And Miyuki Onezawa Watanabe, thank you for the precious teaching. You are welcome. Tashidelek Rinpoche Dennis Shever, I'm grateful for your teaching. Thank you. And then Ninju Kumaran, Namaskaram, Tashidelek, Ninju. And Bhagawan, prostration of the heartfelt gratitude for this illuminating darshan and teaching. You are welcome. So thank you for explaining the fundamental connection between increasing respect for others and reducing anger. Bhagawan, thank you also for the most beautiful Facebook image and wisdom word, Lord. The illuminate face of the Buddha is so incredible, beautiful and gentle. The face reminded me of the mesmerizing picture of Ma that is your favorite cover. Lord, which Ma is that? If possible, could you tell us something about her, please? Thank you. So that is, which one? I think, I don't know, maybe the Buddha picture that I put in the Facebook is the face of the Buddha. So, so I don't know, I don't recollect right now. So, it must be Green Tara, maybe, I think. So, it should be. I don't know exactly because I put a lot of picture, right? I put a lot of picture, so I don't remember all the pictures. Yeah, okay, Ninju. And then Marilyn Holloway, Tashidelek Rinpoche, and thank you for your teaching. Tashidelek Marilyn, you are welcome. All right. So I think that is for tonight. So anyway, so just kind of like from the Dhammapada. So this Dhammapada is a collection of Buddha's teaching in the verses form. So it is kind of like it is commonly. I think there is a book in Pali, right? Like even if when we go into different hotel, I saw this Dhammapada book, and so some of the verses are very actually useful and helpful. So, so this week our word is, this one. All right. And then I see Kayla, ZaChoeje Rinpoche. Kayla, ZaChoeje, thank you so much for this timely teaching. So much anger around right now here in the state. Blessing from. Yes, I think so. Sometime, just kind of like, especially in the political ground, because we always put a lot of importance for self, right? I am important. I'm the most important. And my statement is the most important. Like we are kind of like many people believe like that, and then when they are proof that they are kind of not so important, then people get angry. I think that is true. So somehow we should actually understand that, and we should feel compassion for the people who are actually going through a lot of anger, because when they are angry, and they are punishing themselves, right? They are punishing themselves. They are not happy. They are actually going through a lot of misery in their life, because when we look at the people who are angry, we should not get angry at them. We should just feel compassion, because they are, kind of like they are torturing themselves, right? Anyway, so that is, one thing that we should learn. All right. So John Cosset say, thank you for the teaching today. You are welcome. And Elizabeth Dreher, ZaChoeje. So everybody, take care, stay safe, and see you next week with another verses from the Dhammapada. All right. Thank you.